Some people have asked, well, what about the Advanced Achievement Battery, fondly known as the AAB? Does that mean that I can use the reading comprehension passage then from AAB? And the answer to that is no. My name's Sally Ann. I've been an SpLD assessor for over 25 years. Subscribe to my channel and be the best assessor that you can be. Subtests, STEC, and staying out of trouble. Let's get this one sorted. So there is some confusion around subtests in batteries that are on the STEC list. I'm going to help you stay SASC aligned, and I'm going to try and explain to you what's allowed and what's not. So let's get it sorted. The STEC process, as I'm sure you know, is that STEC will review tests and they will decide whether to approve them or not, and they will then be published in a full test list each June. In between times, we will get updates, and we've had quite a few updates recently. So the STEC list really does matter. It ensures consistency. It really helps us come to robust diagnostic decisions. It makes things defensible. We're using solid tests that are reliable and are designed to do the job as best they can for us. It prevents domain drift, where we suddenly start using them for other purposes than what they were intended. And basically, it just keeps us all safe in our practice. And I'm all about keeping us safe in our practice. So big fan of the STEC list, hugely helpful, saves us massive job of trying to review and look at all the different tests that become available to us. So we had an update in autumn which talks about the use of subtests within batteries that are on the existing SASC test list. That's what it looks like. You can see it on the SASC website. And when you click on that link on the SASC website, it says this, that you are able to use other subtests which may not necessarily have been individually cited, but the battery is approved in order to examine different areas if the individual's profile warrants it. So obviously you need to know what you're doing. You need CPD. You need to be able to engage with the test manual so you know what you're doing. But that's the basic premise. Just because the subtest isn't listed on the STEC list doesn't mean that you can't use it. And it does also make clear that you can do that. However, let's have a look at what that means in practice. So here's an example from our assessment planner for Todd, which lists all the different areas that are mandatory and may be considered for inclusion on the 2025 report format. So we've mapped Todd into our assessment planner, and you can see that Todd, according to the STEC list, covers all these areas, but it doesn't cover untimed non-word reading. We're looking at the reading section here, obviously. So there's a little bit of a gap, but it does cover all these areas. So that's pretty straightforward. We're going to go elsewhere to find a test of untimed non-word reading if we wanted to include it. Remember, that's not a mandatory inclusion. There is a test on Todd called Question Reading Fluency or Word Reading Fluency for the younger ones. And this does look, according to the manual, at reading comprehension under time conditions. But as you can see, it hasn't been selected as an appropriate test for reading comprehension, which needs to be of continuous prose. And you can see the nature of this task is that the individual reads questions silently and then they select the correct response from 4 choices. It's timed. And if you want to collate the dyslexia risk index, so that initial screening from the 3 areas, that would be integral to that. So is it necessary to include it for a diagnostic assessment? No, it's not been listed by STEC. It doesn't meet any of this criteria or actually this criteria. But thinking about the new directive from SASC, can we use it? Yes, because Todd is on the STEC list and you may for some reason want to administer it because your person has real difficulties in a related area and you want to evidence it with the administration of that subtest. Or for some reason, whatever reason that might be, you want to demonstrate that the DRI was and give that as an outcome. So that's okay, you can do that. And that's what the new directive was aiming to clarify, not just in relation to Todd, but with other tests where we now have a lot of different subtests. And okay, it hasn't been listed as an area that's a definite yes that you would include this, but it might be a useful addition from time to time depending on the emerging profile. So that's the intention behind the statement. So some people have asked, well, what about the Advanced Achievement Battery, fondly known as the AAB? Does that mean that I can use the reading comprehension passage then from AAB, because that's not on the STEC list, but the AAB is for other areas? So can I use the reading reading comprehension task from AAB? And the answer to that is no. The reason behind it is there is pre-existing, you can see it came from 2018 when AAB was reviewed by STEC, pre-existing guidance that says actually it's more of a punctuation task than a comprehension task, and therefore it's not suitable for diagnostic assessments to cover prose comprehension. So if you're looking for a prose comprehension activity, the AAB reading comprehension task is not the one, because basically it just involves insertion of punctuation marks. So it does look at something, this knowledge of sentence construction, but it doesn't necessarily look at whether that individual's got a full grasp and a comprehension of the passage or the sentences in the passage. So that predates the current guidance, but it still stands. Okay. One thing that we would need to consider is the test on the current STEC list? Yes. Is this subtest included on the current STEC list? Yes or no? If the answer to that is yes, and it covers the area that you're investigating and that's what you're using it for, then everything's in alignment. What does SASC guidance say about this test? So when SASC reviewed it, if it's in recent years, it will be on the website. So what did they say about it? And were there any concerns about any of the subtests? If they've been explicitly referred to, then it wouldn't be appropriate for them to be included in our assessments. Does this test cover what I think it covers? Does it add value to the assessment? Am I at risk of over testing and doing too much just because you can? Doesn't mean you should. And can I justify its use in the report commentary? You're going to have to explain why you've gone over and above, diverted sideways, delved into an area that's not a mandatory or even a could include for this test battery. So what's going on? Can you justify it? Why are you using it? An example to consider here is the WJ4 cognitive. So currently on the STEC list, WJ4 cognitive in the language and reasoning section is listed as covering verbal reasoning with the general information and the oral vocabulary, covering phonological awareness with the phonological processing, and covering non-verbal reasoning with the fluid reasoning. So that's nice and clear on the list. What it's not approved for is using general information and oral vocabulary as measures of expressive and receptive language. So remember, they are measures of verbal reasoning. Now, just because you're a WJ4 cognitive owner and you don't have anywhere in your battery to get expressive and receptive language, it's not okay to suddenly decide under the banner of that recent SASC announcement, oh, well, I'll use general information and oral vocabulary to cover expressive receptive language. Then that's not okay, because they have been looked at and they have been put in the category of verbal reasoning. So that's where they stay. We can't suddenly start switching categories just to fill a gap in our test battery. What we have had recently is clarification that the Woodcock-Johnson oral language subtest called picture vocabulary, which is listed on the STEC list as a measure of receptive language, is actually now being accepted as a measure of expressive vocabulary or expressive language rather than receptive, as it says on the STEC list. How do we know that? Because this directive was put on the SASC website, and therefore we use it as a test of expressive language. But that's in the oral language battery, and a lot of people have WJ4 cognitive, but they don't have the oral language battery as well, basically due to cost, not because it's a bad test. So WJ4 oral language covers expressive language, as we've now developed, listening comprehension and phonological awareness. It still doesn't cover receptive language, so we've got to go elsewhere. So SASC have said we may use other subtests according to the profile of need, but it has been misinterpreted in some quarters as you can use any subtest and say it measures anything just to plug a gap in your test battery, or thinking, well, that could be. That's not the intention behind the statement. It's more for the example that we saw from Todd, where you might want to add that in for a reason, even though it's not specifically listed on the STEC list. But there's been no guidance to say you can't use it or you shouldn't use it, or it's not a great test. It just doesn't fall into our requirements currently with the 2025 report format. So are you going to be an explorer where you think about nuance and have deeper understanding, or are you going to be a substitutor where you go scrabbling around looking for stand-ins for missing domains. I think we all are going to end up in this explorer category. Let's have a look what's out there. What else can we use? What else can we consider according to the age range and the availability of tests that would be appropriate to the individuals that we are assessing? So your 5 key takeaways: check your STEC list first, stick to approved domains. You can't start swapping tests into other ones just to fill a gap. Extra subtests are for extra exploration, but are they warranted? Interpretation, not invention, and manuals and CPD are really crucial to make sure you know what you're doing and how each test should be administered and interpreted and the area that it covers. So this really does matter because it will impact on learner outcomes. It ensures alignment with SASC guidance, which hopefully will give you confidence, but also the individuals you're assessing confidence that what you're doing is correct. It gives us consistency, and we will then be coming to robust decisions which are evidence-based and backed up by the appropriate tools, and clarity because we know what we're doing and why we're doing it. So final thoughts: we are in a period of change, and it's normal, isn't it, for confusion to happen. When everything's up in the air, things sometimes land in the wrong place, but SASC alignment and keeping up to date with all these changes keeps assessment robust and centered on the individual. It keeps you safe, but it keeps them safe as well in terms of their trust in you to undertake this really important job that we've all got. So keep in touch, do like, subscribe, share our channel, stay aligned, stay confident, and hopefully we will see you again soon.